Hello everybody. So our last little Edpuzzle lecture for our first major writing assignment here about the reverse funnel method for conclusion paragraphs. Now, if you recall, you did an Edpuzzle from Miss Peer Editor on the funnel method for the intro paragraph. And remember, it went from an abstract idea to the context of the story getting more specific and then funneling down to the most specific, the thesis statement. Well, this is going to go in the reverse, okay? So, now what's the purpose of literary analysis conclusion paragraph before we get into the steps, which I hope you can predict because it's going to be kind of the reverse in a way. Well, the purpose is it sums up your entire essay concisely. It convinces your reader that this particular theme or argument does exist in the book or the story, okay? It's your final chance to make your case for your thesis. You're kind of, if you have to try to convince someone in a sentence or two, right? This is something you could do here, or three, I should say. And it can offer new insight or some food for thought. This is what, it's called the so what. The kind of final walk away of, well, why should I care, right? We're all egoists in the end, in a way, where they're all the center of our own universe, and we're not really interested in things that we don't see as somehow applicable to us. So this is your chance to also make sure that you're appealing to that, okay, that why should I care stuff, the kind of final point, okay, which should leave a lasting impression on your reader to keep them thinking. A good essay, when the reader has stopped reading it, it's kind of buzzing in their brain. It leaves them thinking, right? Just like we talked about with the difference between a literary story and a commercial story is one just kind of neatly sums up and you're like, oh, that was fun, and you walk away and you're not thinking about it one more second. Whereas, a stronger story kind of leaves things for the audience to chew on. Same kind of a thing. That's what we're doing here. So let's talk about the parts. All right, so the top part would be your transitional phrase, signaling some kind of conclusion that you're moving on. However, you don't ever want to use the transition in conclusion. Remember, that is a no-no. It is overused. It is dead. Let it stay buried. May it rest in peace. Okay, no zombie in conclusion, pretty please, coming back from the dead. I will be giving you guys a list of many transitions that you can use throughout your essay. Okay, that go with an intro, the intro to kind of introduce it maybe, or to moving on, and then going on to your final points, both between paragraphs and within ideas within your paragraphs. So anyway, so after the transitional phrase, you want to reiterate your thesis. Remember the point of the funnel going the other way is the most specific, right? That top of the pyramid is the same thing. It's just in reverse, right? So you're going to reiterate your thesis, but you want to make sure you're not just saying it word for word. That's boring. Nobody likes repetition. Nobody likes repetition. Nobody likes repetition that's not artfully done. And that would not be artfully done if you did that. So you want to make sure you're saying, basically you're reminding your audience what is this whole thing about? What are you arguing about? What do you want me to believe? Right? So you're restating it in a new way. And then you got to add a little bit of commentary, not a ton. This could be maybe a sentence where you're explaining the theme as it relates to the novel, kind of summarizing your main points within your argument that you use to try to prove your thematic claim that you think is in this piece, right? The argument you think the author is trying to make through their artistic story. And then you want to have some kind of bridge between the specifics of the book and the universal we, us, right? Because remember, stories are never just about the characters or the plot. What they're really about at the end of the day is about how is this about me, about us, about humanity, some part of the human experience, right? So you will need to make that bridge connecting to the universal, right? That's getting into that, why should I care? That's so what? Okay, and you're getting into the abstract. So you go from the specific of the thesis, moving down to talking about the more abstract, talking about the story itself, broadening it, talking about the context, just like it was in the intro, but going in reverse order. And then you want to get to that universal. So at the bottom of the pyramid, right, is that thematic so what, right? That takeaway message to your audience that you want them to walk away going, is that true for me? Is that really accurate? Do I agree with that? Do I see myself in that? What are the implications if that is the case? What does that mean for me or the world or humanity or whatever the topic is? Okay. So honestly, it's just the reverse, right? It went from being the intro paragraph went from abstract to less abstract, getting into the context of the story, and then having it point down to the very specific, right? Going from the general to the specific, right? For your thesis, where you're going to have a specific argument about this specific story. And then it goes in the opposite. You have a specific argument, then you remind people of the context, bridging out that, into the reverse funnel, right? And then you go out to that universal. So it's like you've come full circle, right? Going from the abstract kind of philosophic thematic point and then going back to it. Okay. So here's an example. So I've got right here the tippy top of my pyramid. And again, I'm going to use paper menagerie as an example. So I'm going to have my transitional phrase. It is clear to see now that. All right, and there's lots of transitional phrases you could use, like in the end, all in all, and so it seems, something like that, right? But I put, it is clear to see now that, and then I'm going to have my reiteration of my thesis, which is, it is clear to see now that through Jack's life-changing struggle with himself and his mother's heritage, as well as the symbolic Lahu, paper menagerie conveys that cultural heritage and family love are integral to one's identity, even when one tries to reject them. Okay, so I'm kind of saying what my thesis was, but in a little bit of a new way, kind of adding a little more nuance to it, because now that I've argued through the whole thing. And then I need to kind of start to bridge out to that universal, right? And reminding everybody of like the basics of my argument, right? In my argument, I talked about the symbolism, right, and the epiphany through the internal conflict, right? So I say Jack's rejection of his heritage, the symbolism of the paper animals, and his final realization of his mother's sacrifices all demonstrate the emotional and cultural loss caused by his attempts to assimilate. So I'm reminding you through the story details of how this thesis has been illustrated to be the case. And then I got to have that bridge, right? And then I say, ultimately, Liu's story reminds us. Now, this is when it's okay to use the universal we, because you're getting to that final point of that so what, where you're allowed to use we, us. It's still no you. I don't want to see any you. But you could use we, us in this part. So again, let me start over on that part. It says, ultimately, Liu's story reminds us that understanding and accepting our cultural heritage is essential to understanding ourselves, and that family bonds are an enduring part of that identity, even when they are neglected. So I'm connecting that thesis to us. It's not all about Jack, it's about us, really. And then that final kind of point, the message is clear, losing touch with our roots can lead to an emptiness that cannot be filled by conforming to external pressures. Right? Because that's the kind of takeaway message, to let the audience know, don't conform to what other people's expectations are. You should live your own path and not be worrying about, conforming to what somebody else thinks is right. That's what led Jack to hate his culture and his mother, or at least resent. I guess hate's too strong, but resenting both. And it ruined his childhood and his relationship with his mother. And now he's got lifelong guilt forever, right? So for us, we don't want to be Jack, right? We don't want to be worried so much about conforming to some external pressure to tell us you can't be who you are, and ignore that. So we can learn through Jack, don't be that guy, right? So I hope that that's been helpful, right? So we've got all the parts again, from the transition to the reiterating of the thesis statement in a new way, summing up in a sentence what your main argument points were in those two body paragraphs, then that bridge to the universal and the final message you want. That's so what? Okay, notice how this is 4 sentences. That's like all you really want. So let's talk about some pitfalls real quick to make sure you don't do them. Some giant no-nos, okay? Now, a lot of this I took from Miss Peer Editor. which was the Edpuzzle video we used for the funnel method for the intro paragraph for literary analysis. The reason why I'm doing this one instead of using hers is because she uses the Scarlet Letter as an example, and I don't want to ruin that book for you because that's a book you're going to read next year. So I had to kind of take her ideas and kind of add my own 2 bits so that you could get the same lesson that you would have had from her that I really liked, but without spoiling one of your major books for next year. So anyway, this is a screenshot I took from her video, and I agree with her 100% on this. So these are some pitfalls you want to make sure that you don't do. You do not want to restate the thesis word for word. Remember what I said. You do not want to summarize the book. Remember who your audience is. It's me. I know what the story is, and that's just empty fluff. And that's not going to impress me, and it's a waste of time and space. Don't do that, okay? You just want to summarize your argument, not the book. You don't want to say general, broad statements like this book is of paramount importance because of blah, blah, blah. That's just kind of generic, right? You want to say something specifically philosophical about what this story is specifically arguing as you see it, okay? Or short story, excuse me, for this one. And you don't want to include character names or references to the book when discussing the universal at the so what. Right? Those last couple of sentences, don't bring up Jack. Right? You wanted to keep it at the audience. Okay? That final, have them like look at themselves and think to themselves, right? How does this apply to me? Is this true? What lesson could I learn? What should I be worried about? Or what call to action might I need to do to move forward from what I've learned through your wisdom of your essay, okay? So you want to knock it off when you get to that last parts, okay? And this is a big one on the bottom. Absolutely no quotes or citations in your conclusion because that means you're arguing new points. That's not a conclusion. That's another body paragraph. I mean, it's one thing to add some interesting philosophical quote that's like, like some from great philosopher kind of reiterating your point in another way that's not from the book. That's fine. But you don't want to be adding new evidence from the story. So, I would just, if I were you, no quotes, okay? Not in the conclusion, not in the intro. So both funnels, right? None of that in there. Body paragraphs, yes, yes, yes. You need to have at least 2 per body paragraph, if not more, okay? But no, not in the intro or conclusion. All right, so that's it, y'all. You should be ready at this point to have had most of your outline filled out and ready to start typing. If you have any questions about what this Edpuzzle's been about, you're more than welcome to email me or come see me before school any day but Monday, or after school any day but Wednesday and Friday. All right, guys. Talk to you later.